Good evening, everyone. My name is Joanna Greenlees. This is Christopher Murphy, and thank you all for being here this evening. We think our current educational system is broken. We currently have too high a dissatisfaction rating in the educational engagement and attainment. Thanks. Educational and attainment being too high. So we're talking about 40% of our undergraduate students and 75% of our secondary students being disengaged with the content. This is a concern for Australia's future prosperity and our propensity to solve problems in the near future. The next generation is going to be the people who need to learn how to do this. We think these high levels are due in part due to our underutilisation of advanced technologies in the classroom, with our classroom teaching methodologies essentially the same as they have been for over a century. To place these figures in context, ANZ's dissatisfaction rating is 22%, Jetstar's is 32%, and Tony Abbott's, before he was ousted, was 53%. So you replace our Prime Minister when he has this level of dissatisfaction, but 75% of our secondary students are disinterested and unmotivated to learn, and currently we're doing nothing about it. At Omersion, we believe that VR is the key game changer to increasing the levels of engagement and attainment. We want to allow students to leave the classroom to have an experience, which has been shown to be the greatest driver of learning. 80% of VR information is retained versus 20% by traditional methods. We want to build a digital platform of story-based virtual reality experiences. Imagine you're learning about climate change. You put your goggles on and you're in Nuatambu Island. Now you can walk around and see that there are 25 families living on this island, and you can see the remains of 11 houses that have already been washed into the sea. And then you speak to a local who says they have to leave their ancestral home due to climate change.
Thanks very much, Jay. So I guess the size of the market that we're really going after and where Omersion's playing in is we're envisaging two product streams. So one focusing on Australia's tertiary sector and one's focusing on Australia's secondary educational market. And we've really spent a lot of time sizing up what these markets look like and really trying to understand the capital and equity flows that exist within them. But the key takeaway, it's a very complex sector, and by no means do we envisage it's going to be easy, but together they spend around $36.1 billion just on educational delivery. So that's a huge number, and that excludes things like maintaining bricks and mortar, looking after buildings. That's literally just expenditure on teachers providing experiences to students in the classroom and delivering material. And even a small percentage of that pie would significantly provide return on investment. So deciding how we're going to go after that $36.1 billion pie, we've developed a 3-year go-to-market strategy that really sees a targeted rollout across these 3 years. So in 2017, which is next year, for the first product here, we're hoping to have 5 tertiary institutional partners on board. We already have one. So we've had a commitment from a top-tier university to allow us to undertake a beta trial within their institution. So in semester 1, 2017, 2,000 students will have the opportunity to experience Omersion's VR technology. 2018, we're hoping to roll it out to 23 institutions, and then by 2019, be on board with 40 institutions and have them engaging with us on the platform. Again, our second tier product is aiming after the secondary school market. 2017, we're not envisaging any activity whatsoever. ACARA is currently going through a pretty significant change to their curriculum rollout, and I don't think that's a market we want to go near when they're changing the curriculum. But in 2018, we're really going after 200 schools, and then in 2019, try and have a presence in around 500 schools. So we've really done some detailed analysis, which was in the business plan, which was presented to the judges. We've done some costings around revenue and expenditure projections across the next 3 years. We imagine we'll do around 3.6 million in revenue across the first 3 years, and expending around 1.7 million across those same periods, so investing quite heavily in the tech development for the platform. But by 2019, we're imagining an EBITDA of around 312,000. So we really think it's going to be possible to be cash flow positive by 2019. So I guess why are we here and why are we, so we're in negotiations with VC investors potentially about funding, so why are we here and interested in the actual Genesis program as a whole? And I think there's 4 key things that we really want to take away, because we fundamentally believe that businesses are about providing utility to customers. And if you're not providing a service to your customers that's improving their lives, then you're not really doing much at all. And we fundamentally believe that virtual reality and Omersion's products really have an ability to improve educational engagement and educational attainment. And so ultimately, definitely this is a competition. We want placement in the Social Innovation Hub program. But we also believe that we want University of Sydney on board as a foundation client of ours because we fundamentally understand that the University of Sydney has a social mission, which is to educate, and we think that we can really tap into that and improve our products and engage with the university through the product development cycle. And the university is already doing it. They're already using virtual reality technology in the Charles Perkins Centre just in the medical research space, and so we think there's a real opportunity to broaden the way that the university is using VR, and that really is honing in on social sciences, which is there's just nobody in that space that's currently providing VR experiences. And so that's what we're about, that's Omersion. That's what we're hoping to achieve. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I'm just interested in knowing what are your backgrounds and how does this sort of come about as an idea?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting question. So I'm an entrepreneur by background, so I've just finished up my MBA here at the University of Sydney. I've done a couple of startups in big data and tech space. Jo's background is very similar, so she's got a background in science, done public policy for a while, and is studying a master's, just completed her master's in entrepreneurism here at the University of Sydney. So yeah, I mean that's fundamentally why we believe. I think it's a huge, a market, obviously the education space, but also I think we both have a common value for education. Both background, we've invested very heavily in our education, and we believe that education is an experience that all students should be benefiting from. And it's just currently we felt something was lacking in what we experienced as university students, and VR has the propensity to improve that.
Yeah, with a heavy sort of reliance on VR, and it is a booming sort of market, and no sort of tech background, do you think that's going to be a challenge?
Okay.
So because our backgrounds are more in the management area, and also we do have a bit of tech backgrounds between the both of us, we see it as employing a contractor to do most of the tech part of the platform creation. So we're more about the content as well. What's the content going to be on that platform? And we know about educational content, curriculums, and what's going to be best for learning in particular areas as well because of our backgrounds. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, right.
Thank you. So I was really interested here looking at two different markets, the secondary market and the tertiary market. It's unusual to try and take on two very disparate markets at the same time. So am I hearing that you're going to take on the university one first rather than the secondary one?
Yep.
And the reason for that is because your feeling is the curriculum doesn't change as fast at universities as it does at secondary schools, is that right?
Yeah, correct. And there's 40 accredited university institutions in Australia, 1,300 secondary schools. So you've got a much more diverse geographic market. Well, most universities in Australia are already on the NBN, so they have, obviously VR tech is quite tech heavy on how you deliver that material. You've got secondary schools that can be in very rural and remote areas, so they're not yet going to have the technological capacity. We don't have the budget to go out and buy the capacity to take it into a school to deliver the VR tech. There's a whole heap of practicalities around the actual tech functionality, being able to deliver a VR experience to students. And also, it's a very scalable product. So imagine it's a build-out of an educational resource that a university can use. So universities have a lot more budget to spend on actual curriculum delivery. So every academic gets a disposable budget when they're creating an actual course outline about what they're going to include into it to deliver. The national curriculum is delivered at a higher level. It's set by a state board that says every school in the country must deliver this material at this given time. And we definitely want to be part of that. So we want to deliver material that feeds into that curriculum, but it's going to be a much longer sales cycle for us to develop those relationships, get entrenched in that community, and then build the resources that we can roll out.
Because one of the things I thought I understood about universities is that universities do quite a lot of research, so that changes the way they're thinking about doing things. So I thought that made quite a difference to the courses. So on an annual basis, the courses are going to need to be reinvigorated. If you're doing a VR type course where you've got a lot of input from the student that's changing the way the VR system is working, how can you manage that process of continual course update?
I guess part of the way we've structured the company is we'll be developing generic content, but also as well specific content for different courses. So the generic content is the content we see it's not changing very much. So my climate change example, I think, is a good one of that, where it can be used across different educational subjects. But when you have something that's changing year on year, as you've mentioned, I guess the genius behind what we're doing is we will create those new and updated versions as required. So that's something we have built into our structure.
Great, very interesting. A couple things. Just can you talk about the revenue trajectory, content versus product sales, and how you're thinking about the composition? as to bringing in new content or selling generic content versus the actual product and the margin on that?
Yeah, of course. So we refer to our products as experiences, so they're virtual reality experiences, and essentially we distribute out the experiences inside institutions. And so the scalability and the profit margin on the product depends on the number of students that are participating in the experience. So for some subjects, you'll have 2,000 students that will be undertaking Introduction to Statistics, for example, and so we could do a virtual reality experience around mathematics and the way that mathematics can be used. So that's obviously very scalable and very highly profitable because that's a university would pay for that custom experience. So it's all around the number of students that are engaging with the experience, and so there's a fixed fee in our model, and the margin varies depending on the number of students. So if a university comes to us and says, oh, we've got 30 students in a particular class, then we offer a cheaper rate for the development of that particular experience versus a mass-produced experience. On the secondary level, we charge per student. So basically, I don't think it's fair inside students in secondary schools come from much broader demographics than universities, so we never wanted to impose on a school a fixed fee. So it was, if you've got 13 students that can participate in this VR experience, then by all means we'll come in and deliver it, and we're charging $6 for per student participation in a secondary school experience.
Great. And then also, I know you're doing an alpha trial for, I think you mentioned 2,000 students. Can you just talk a little bit about what your KPIs are for actually seeing the results of that and what your expectations are for that?
Yeah, so that's a really fascinating question if you ask that. So the inclusion of metrics around actual attainment from education is something that Joe and I are specifically interested in, and it's actually, the university has agreed that they will just prescribe the virtual reality content throughout the course curriculum throughout the year, and then they're actually going to assess it in the examination, so that we can actually compare student attainment results from modules that were assessed and delivered via virtual reality versus those modules that were delivered by standard traditional educational methods. So we can really do in, I like stats, I like numbers, so I really want to dig into that data and really understand about, does it make a difference? Do students actually attain more and remember more from a VR experience versus reading it in a textbook? So I think the university is committed, made a commitment to us that they're committed to rolling it out. I think the KPI for us is obviously getting through a beta trial as a startup would be a big win for us at the start, but also I think the data that's going to come out of that, and so we'll be very heavy on actually putting in some very key data gathering points throughout the trial so that we can actually assess its success at the end.
One last quick question. I see you're looking to raise some money for this. Is that money purely to run the beta trial?
No, not at all. So we actually, the process of developing a piece of VR content, there are VR content studios out there that will produce a piece of material for you, and they charge about $7,000 to do so. So really the money that we would need to raise is more about developing the platform, which is actually delivering that content on a much more scalable way. So we would simply just engage in a studio, getting them to develop one piece of content, then rolling that out, and then assessing whether or not it worked, what worked about that content, what didn't work, and then actually building a platform that content can be put on to be delivered at a broader, across the geographic area. Thank you.
The award for the most disruptive enterprise goes to Omersion.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It was easily consensus amongst the judges, so.
Great,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm stoked we have to start. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations, guys. Round of applause.
What we look for is, in the two prizes that we're handing out, the businesses that we thought we could contribute to and help in the long term. In the hub, what we could bring to it through the Hatch program, through the sprint sessions, and ultimately through the money, of course. But through our support, the two businesses we thought we could help in the longer term to become successes. And welcome Omersion.
Well done indeed. Fantastic.